Hi everyone, Andrew here again. In this rather gloomy video, I'm going to talk about probate. Now, if you've never been through probate, at a time when you're dealing with the bereavement and loss of a loved one, having to include and tackle financial complexities and legal processes can be a daunting and frustrating task. So, although I'm not a legal expert, and this video isn't about providing legal advice, I just want to highlight and explain what probate is, who needs to apply for it, who doesn't, what the process is, and some of the pitfalls to think about and to be aware of. So probate is the legal process by which you have to go through when someone dies to make sure that the assets of their estate can be distributed as per their wishes, where there's a will or if there's no will, as per the laws of intestacy, and also to make sure any debts and taxes are paid. And that can't be done until probate is granted. So to explain who needs to go through probate, it might be easier to explain who doesn't need to go through probate. So anyone who has only savings, cash in the bank, particularly small values, they don't need to go through probate. Now, different banks might have different protocols about when they require probate certificates to be shown, but in the main, it should be straightforward for low values of savings. You also don't need to go through probate where assets are jointly held. So normally that would be a house where you own with a husband, wife, partner, whoever it might be, and it's in joint names, or any other investments or any other assets that are held in joint names, because they simply pass to the survivor. You also don't need to go through probate where there are solely pension funds, because pensions are outside of an estate from inheritance tax purposes. But one important aside is make sure that you have your pension nominations set up as per your wishes, because that just speeds things along for the pension provider to pay the pension funds to whoever you wish on your death. The same applies for trusts. Trusts are also outside of the estate, so any assets are being put into the trust gets administered and paid out by trustees. And that's one of the key benefits of a trust, is that it can speed the payment of assets to beneficiaries without the need to go through probate. So that's the main areas where you don't need to go through probate. Anything else will be captured by it. So the process you need to go through is you apply to the probate court, probate registry, and to do so, you can do in writing or online. If you go to gov.uk and search for probate, it outlines the steps there in the application process. But what you need is the will, where there is one, a value of all the deceased's assets, cash, investments, properties, everything they have, and the death certificate. And there is potentially a fee to pay for the probate to be granted. It's £273 where the deceased person's estate is over £5,000. So when you go through at that and submit all the documents, it can take, at the moment, it's about 16 weeks, might be sooner, might be longer, particularly for more complicated estates, but do bear in mind it can take some time for probate to be granted and assets to be able to be distributed. But once probate is granted, you get a certificate confirming that, and at that point you pay off any outstanding debts, if there are any, or any income tax, capital gains tax that might be due, and then the assets of the estate can be distributed according to the deceased wishes. Now, an important point to note is that if inheritance tax is due, that might well be payable before probate is completed, and HMRC won't wait for the probate certificate until they ask for inheritance tax. So it can be that there's often, if there's a delay in probate, it can mean that there's challenges about being able to pay inheritance tax before there's realisable assets to do so. So it's just something there to be mindful of. Other pitfalls to think about are to make sure that you get an accurate valuation of the assets when you apply for probate, because if they are inaccurate, if they're valued too low, not only will that cause delays, but it might incur legal costs or a legal process to go through and additional taxes. And if anything is inaccurate or incomplete when you go through the process, it will just delay it further and possibly incur further charges. You also want to be mindful of any family disputes that can delay things. If anyone in the family is contesting the will, that has to be cleared up before you can go through and get probate granted. So they are the main things to think about. As I said at the start, this isn't a legal advice. You can get legal advice. You can get a lawyer to go through the probate for you, but obviously that would incur costs. It shouldn't be a too complicated process. If the estates are particularly complicated, perhaps there's lots of different assets, different properties, perhaps business interests or overseas assets, you might at that point prefer the use of a solicitor to go through the process for you. But otherwise, if it's more straightforward, you could probably do it yourself if you're comfortable doing so. But I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a basis to start from should you need to go through probate at any time in the near future. Thanks for watching and speak soon.